As the rain hammered against the windshield, my car sputtered to a stop in front of the towering iron gates of Blackwood Mansion. I could feel the oppressive weight of the house even from the road. The wrought iron scrollwork twisted into grotesque faces, their hollow eyes seeming to follow me as I stepped out into the storm. The locals had warned me not to come here. This place was cursed, they'd said, responsible for disappearances over the decades. Whispers spoke of shadows that moved on their own, of a family that had vanished without a trace one fateful night in 1923. But I didn't believe in ghosts, at least not until tonight. With a deep breath, I walked toward the gates, pushing them open. They groaned like a dying man's last breath. The overgrown path ahead was barely visible beneath the choking vines and gnarled roots that slithered across the ground like skeletal fingers. I stumbled forward, my flashlight flickering with each step, revealing only fleeting glimpses of the mansion's rotting facade. Blackwood Mansion loomed before me, a monstrous structure of crumbling stone and shattered windows. The air grew colder as I neared the house, the smell of damp decay replacing the scent of petrichor. Something long dead but not quite gone lingered here, and I could feel its icy fingers curling around my heart. My gaze fell to the overgrown weeds and dead bushes surrounding the porch. It had once been a grand entrance, but now it was the gaping maw of some horrible beast, ready to swallow me whole. The front door hung crooked on its hinges, creaking as I nudged it open. The storm outside had been warm, but the moment I crossed the threshold, the temperature plummeted. My breath fogged in the air. The foyer was frozen in time. A thick layer of dust coated the once opulent surroundings, undisturbed for decades. The grand staircase stood before me, its thick carpet shrouded in darkness. I could make out the shapes of furniture beneath moth-eaten sheets, remnants of the lives once lived here, but something was wrong. The sheets didn't just cover furniture, some of them were shaped like people slumped in chairs or curled on the floor. I walked closer, my heart pounding in my chest. I reached out, my fingers trembling, and pulled back a sheet. A sudden noise echoed from upstairs, a child's laughter. My blood turned to ice. There hadn't been any children in the Blackwood family when they disappeared. I wasn't sure if it had been the wind or something else, but the hair on the back of my neck stood on end. I followed the sound, each step making the wooden stairs groan like a living thing. The laughter had led me to a nursery. Its walls were covered in faded, peeling murals of grinning clowns. A rocking chair swayed gently, though no one sat in it. Then from behind me, a whisper, "You shouldn't be here." I whirled around, my flashlight beam searching the shadows, but there was nothing there. I took a shaky breath and turned back to the nursery. That's when I saw it carved into the underside of the rocking chair. "Beware the shadows." Suddenly, the basement door at the far end of the hall swung open. The air grew colder, the smell of old blood and wet earth filling my nostrils. As I hesitated, the door creaked shut with a resounding thud. I could hear scratching sounds from within. I had to check it out. With the flashlight clutched tightly in my hand, I descended into the cellar. My beam danced over the grime-covered walls, revealing dozens of pale faces staring back at me. Their mouths were stretched in silent screams, their eyes wide with terror. When the light hit them, they were gone. I let out a shaky breath, my heart hammering against my ribs, but my fear quickly turned to confusion. What was this place? What had happened here? And then I saw it. The answer lay at the back of the room, a set of rusted metal stairs leading up to a heavy-looking door. The air grew warmer as I approached, as if a furnace had been left on in the other room. As I neared the door, my flashlight flickered again, and in the brief darkness I saw them, hundreds of handprints pressed against the wall. They were smeared in what looked like dried blood. I touched one of the prints, recoiling instantly. It was sticky. I turned to the door and noticed the keyhole had been filled with something that looked like wax. But then I heard a scratching sound from behind the door. Wet, ragged breathing seeped through the cracks. My fingers brushed the cold metal. Then I felt it move. Bang! The door shuddered violently as something threw itself against it. A guttural voice too deep to be human snarled, "We've been waiting for you." I screamed and ran, scrambling up the stairs, the laughter following me, now coming from every direction. I burst into the foyer, glancing back to see the sheets in the entryway twitching. as if something was trying to rise from beneath them. I flung myself toward the front door, yanking it open. But just as I slipped out into the storm, it slammed shut. I whirled around to see the grand staircase crack. Something began to crawl down. It had too many limbs. Its skin hung loose, sagging like melted wax. I smashed a nearby window and hurled myself into the darkness, not stopping until I reached my car. I could still hear the laughter echoing behind me. I sped away, glancing back to see a pale figure standing in the mansion's highest window, smiling. They found my car the next morning abandoned on the side of the road. The doors were locked from the inside. The seat was soaked with rain and something else, and on the passenger seat a single, crumbling photograph of the Blackwood family. Their faces had been scratched out, except for one. A little girl grinning. Would you dare step inside Blackwood Mansion? Or would you, like so many before you, become just another missing person in its cursed history?